Being an object-oriented programming, Swift has got all the concept which relies onto an modern object-oriented language like classes, objects, inheritance, initializers, deinitializers, and pretty much everything. So let us discuss about the classes in this movie. Now, on a side note, whenever you are going to try to study the classes in the Swift, you will notice that most of the resources like Stack Overflow, official Apple documentation, maybe some other tutorials, you will realize that a lot of people are talking about the classes and structure onto the same by same on a side by side. So this is really a common because classes and structures have got immense similarity in defining their properties, storing their values, defining methods, or a lot of things like that. But this is not the case with that because there are some cases with the classes which are pretty much different from the structure, and these are cases like inheritance, the initializers, the deinitializers, the automatic reference countings, and all such things are very drastically different from the structure. So I would say that yes, it is good to compare the classes and structure, but I decided that first we will talk about all the concept of the classes and later on we will deal up with the structure. So with that, let's talk about the classes. The first question arises is how we define the classes. What is the structure for that? So at line number 4, you can see we have got a class keyword, and yes, that is only responsible to have a declaration for the class. And notice I'm naming my classes as movie ticket booking and the M is capital. Again, I will say that again. I said it previously also that whenever we are defining a new data type, then obviously we need a capital letter first. It is not at all a simple priority or maybe a rule. It's not that. It's just a convenience that all of the programmers like to follow. And all the classes has got some properties and methods. And it is not like the Objective-C we have to worry about tons of things. It is not like that. We only have to worry about defining our properties and methods. And a property can be a variable or it can be constant. Again, depending on whether you are using a var or a let. Now notice I am defining that var person name and then I'm type inferring it as well as assigning the initial value as well. Now in the previous movie I told you that it is not at all required to type infer if you are providing initial value, but there is a subtle difference out here. I'll come back here in a moment because there is a problem when you do not define an initial value. Right now it's not going to create a problem if I delete it and save it, and the simple reason is I have done something at the bottom of my code. So let me get that guy back, and here it is. Now same goes for the number of seats and the person name. We have defined an initial value for all of them, but I'll come back here and try to show you that what happens when you do not have the initial values. Coming back onto the methods, we have already talked a lot about the function, so I will not spend much time out here. It's a simple function having a return type of string, and we are returning a simple string that says thanks person name for booking a number of tickets out there. Okay, then comes the initializer. Now what happens if I don't have these initializers? So what I can do, I can simply comment these lines. And let me just quickly comment that to show you what happens when we don't have the initializers. Now right now our class is not going to make much of the sense. Let me comment this guy also. Now although our class will remain exactly the same, it is not going to make much of the sense out here. But why the initializers are out here? Now there is a problem out here that when we don't define an initial value to it, now it creates a problem. It says that, hey, what is the value? You may be initializing an object from it. You may be instantiating an object and I don't know what to put out here. So one way of dealing with that is putting up an initial value. But in case you want to go around with that, and there comes our initializers. Now initializers are really simple to use. Let me uncomment that again. And this guy as well. Oops, not this one. Command Z. This guy out here, the initializers. Okay, so what are initializers being used for? Now, every time you create an object from the class, an initializer is automatically being called up. Now, if you do not define an initializer, Swift will go ahead and define one for you, but many times you really want to have your own initializers. Like for example, I want to have an initializer and I want to assign a default value like example to my person name and number of seats to 0. So if a person simply decide to have an object being created from the class, automatically it will assign the name person name to example and number of seats equals to 0. So that is one type of initializer, but you can also customize your initializers as you can put on the default parameter inside the parenthesis. Like for example, I decided that user should pass the name of the user while creating an object from the classes. So what I did, I use the init, I use a person name of string type, and then I'm defining. Now again, a little bit problem. What is this self out here? Now self is a really simple concept. Now without self, it would look something like this. If I remove that, it will say that there is a one person name which is being transferred by the user while creating the object. But there is also one person name which is coming from the class itself. So it makes a confusion which one is that we are trying to have. Now when we have a self, it means it's referring to its own object out here. So this person name is of class and this person name is coming out from the user. Okay, good. So far we have studied the self as well. I'll come back to the D init later on. Right now it's not that much worthy, so we'll take care of that later on. Now let's try to have initialize some of the objects. So how do we do that? Again, it's really simple. You define a variable like customer1 and you create this as an object of movie ticket booking classes by using this syntax. Now there is no new keyword or there is no nothing keyword. Yes, in the Swift is inspired by many languages, but we take the structure of many other languages and try to deal up with the Swift way. So no new keyword or anything else out there, just use this method and you have successfully instantiated an object from the movie ticket booking class. Now in order to access any property, it is the same, the customer1 dot property. The dot method is used to access the properties or the methods or wherever you want to go around. So it's really simple. We can see that the person name is being set to Kevin and the number of seat is being set to 10 and we are having a final confirmation method which we have declared out here. The final confirmation method that just returns us a simple message. So notice we got a Kevin and it says thanks Kevin for booking 10 seats and here it is. Okay, good so far. Now this was actually being defined by using the default initializer because we are just passing it. We are creating an object without passing anything inside the parameters. And what about if I want to pass anything inside the parameters? Yes, we can do that. I would say movie ticket booking, and notice we have got a variable customer2 and we are having a movie ticket booking and then I'm saying define person name as Olive. Now again, you got an option. Don't worry about that because we don't know what type of objects are being defined in the initializer. So nothing to be worried. I can say var and I can say customer3 and I would say that this again make it as a movie ticket booking. And notice as I put my first bracket, it gives me a hint that what type of initializers are being there. The first one is the default initializer. The second one, which is highlighted out here, is having a person name. So if I click enter on that, notice the person name is automatically being filled up. So yes, this is one of the charms of using the Xcode. And finally, we are having a customer2.final confirmation. So it says Oliver, thanks Oliver for booking 0 seat. Now why there is a 0? Because we have defined an initial value to 0. We are changing one value, but we didn't change the second value. Yes, we can access the dot properties and everything. Now this is all about the initializer we have been talking around. But what about, let's say we want to de-initialize the value. Now for that you got an option of de-init. It just takes nothing. It just an empty parenthesis and that is how you have a de-initializers. Now, although in the Swift, the de-initialization of the objects is not in your hand, it is being handled somewhat by automatic reference counting and short as an ARC. And really it's a fancy name, but it is being handled by the automatic reference counting. But there are some options and some places where you really want to control that. Let's say you are working into some networking level, you are opening up a server connection and the server connection is being opened up by some of the object being initiated by some classes. So you want to close that connection. At that point, you have to deinitialize the variable or the object that is being created. So that's one of the point where you can use it, but others can be example of MySQL versions or maybe opening up some files and all of that. So you want to make sure that our object is being deinitialized and the file is not at all open up so that we accidentally may corrupt it. So that's all about the classes that we have got. Yes, classes is not at all over yet. It's a bit deep topic and I would recommend you to go through with the documentation as well. But once you have finished my videos, because these videos will help you a lot and the documentation will be crystal clear to everyone once you have gone through with the videos. Okay, quite a good and a very big talk. Now let's move ahead on to the next movie.